record. All right, so kicking off week 2, and we're going to do some demos. Deb, Viviana?
Do you want me to show it, or do you want to?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, yeah, I'll share my screen. Okay. And I'll talk about a little bit about like what Rafa and Dana did, since it's kind of connected. Okay, so here we are. Just refresh. Okay, so they did the token stuff, and I already have it here. Let me see. Yeah, okay, so I have my token here. So I'm gonna go on view my shopping list. So that's there. And then the part that Deb and I did was the form. So here it is. So let me go on my console. Okay, yeah, so we already have like our state, which I know we said we should clean up the console log, so we'll do that. So far the day is initialized to 7, and then the last purchase date is null. I know you said we should change this to a number, we'll do that too. So if I just put mangoes, and I put not soon, add item, and then Dev had this idea to have this feedback, which I thought was cool. And then you go back to the list, and then there's mangoes. Oh, and there's an error. I don't know what that is. But yeah, that's basically it. And then you should be able to see it over here in Firestore. We got the idea from Tanner to name each collection the name of the token. So I think this one's mine. Yeah. So then mangoes should show up. Yeah, this right here. So yeah, I thought this was really nice, like idea, organizing it like this. And yeah, that's it.
Cool. I'll share my screen to go over the code base. All right, so this is we worked on add item view. For this, first of all, we thought we needed to like create like the form and the state and have like a state. So where's our form? Oh yeah, so we made a little modular. So we created the form right here. We created it in another file called components, and we have our pages, has like all the pages we want to go to, so list view and add view. So I guess most of our like code is like in the form. So our form is just like a standard form. We have like labels and inputs, and we have some methods on the inputs, like an on change. So we have an on change because we want to have like event.target. So when we type when the user is typing in, it actually like collecting the data, like when she typed in mangoes. So we have that for when like how we have a radio button for like how often they were going to buy it, and the item right here. So, and then we kept it like we use this thing called default check. So usually when the page renders, it's going to be value 7 right now, because that's the only one that has a default check. And then we have a submit button on the bottom and an on submit on the top of the form. So it connects like the whole I guess the whole like tag, like it represents the on submit on the whole form. And yeah, these are all our methods. We have like a use state where we're just right now it's like we're just storing like the dates. So we put it in like a string because it's like 3 words. For now it's like null when it's like I guess we should keep it yeah, we should keep it null. And then yeah, this is just the logic for all the handle submit. It's just like the same way I guess most people do it. And this is like we incorporated like the Firestore way of doing stuff. So I guess when someone inputs the stuff, it overwrites the previous state, and then it adds like the name and like the value of like the new stuff. So the name is just like we made a dynamic. That's why we had like a destructuring right here. So depending on whatever like the name is, it's gonna add the value to the previous state. And then over here, the add doc, it just adds like a collection. It's like to the token. It's adding the token, which is like specific for any person that logs into the website. So yeah, and this is connecting. So I guess the collection takes in 2 inputs. It takes in like a takes in this input, and then it takes like another input right here. That's like, this is the first parameter, and then this is the second, like, I guess, parameter. And then, yeah, this is basically just adding like, this is like our three things that we need in our Firestore: the item, the days, and the purchase date. And it's just doing, it's calling the set state, the set inputs, and just modifying it. And then after it's all done, it's gonna just we thought it was a good like idea to like just make it empty strings after that, after you enter like the thing, like, so it doesn't stay in like mangoes after she submits it. And then we just calling the toast notification over here. We just imported like a library toast. We didn't do too much. We didn't do any styling yet. We just imported this and then calling this function, and it just calls it basically. And yeah, and then we just inputted this toast container. That's all we did for the toast. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And oh yeah, the token that we got it from the other groups, that logic is over here. So I guess they generated something from this library, get token, and then this function gets it and it stores it in the local storage. And we have console logs because we were just testing it. And we didn't think like we needed to like, we just thought like we made so many commits, so like, should we just make another commit just to like remove the console logs? We'll probably just do it next time. So we just didn't want to do any unnecessary like commits. But yeah, basically like we just wanted to test like if the token is getting, if we can pass the token onto the other side. And we were, and that's why we're testing the token in here. Where to go? Here. Console log token, yeah. So we use that, we pass it as a prop right here, we deconstructed it, and then we use it in our handle submit right here. So this is like the collection, and this is like the, I mean, sorry, this is the database, and this is like the collection in the Firestore. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks really good. I think Rob had a good point about where I found that bug where if you don't have any items or if the token doesn't exist in the database, then you will get that error. So that's like the feedback recommendation for console logs is like, it's okay to make as many commits as you need. There's the squash and merge feature, like especially when you're learning, it's okay to do as many commits as you need to kind of iterate through fixing things. Let's see, some feedback on the form. I noticed you use HTML4 for some of the elements, and that was really great in terms of accessibility. I did have a question in one of those where you have an HTML4 for options, but then there's no ID for options. So I think there's
This one?
Do you mean maybe name?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We just called it we just needed like a kind of like a, like, what is this thing for? So I guess we call it options, but should we call it name?
I think the HTML4 accessibility is to tie it to an input field. It's like a reference to versus just labeling it that way. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess we messed up. It should be
Yeah.
name, like, since this is ID is name. Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
so-
makes sense.
Yeah, like if you go further down for your label, you have HTML4 equals soon,
Yeah,
and your input after that. Yeah, so just little things like that. But other than that, it looks really great. I love the way that you control the forms and then just spreading the value down. So when you're updating it, it updates, it just kind of follows nicely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I was so confused for a second. I thought you were saying HTML4, the number, and I was like, HTML4. She picked out a feature that was specifically from HTML4. That's very interesting.
Oh, I see.
I thought that too, actually. I was like,
It's
I thought we were on HTML5 or something.
yeah.
Right now.
It's only it's in HTML that attribute is called for, but it's called HTML4 in React because for is a reserved keyword, so you can't use just for. Anyway,
Yeah.
Good. That's a good call out. Like I should reference the line. to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
But once you found it in the code, I was like, oh, that's what she was talking about. I was just- yeah.
Actually, I want to like show you something. I realized why that was an issue. Before over here, it was like it was said HTML4 and it said what was it? It said options, right? This used to be a label. This used to be a label, but we realized that if we do label, right, we have a styling on this label, which kind of makes it where is the styling? CSS. We wanted to like instead of like being in like a row, we wanted to be like in one row. We wanted to have it in multiple rows, so that's why we made a display block margin. So if I made where'd he go? The components form. Where's form?
Did add item?
Yeah, sorry, right here. Yeah, so that's why we made it H3 because it looks. If we kept the label, you know, it would have been display block, and it would have just messed up like the styling. That's why we thought this looks cleaner. We try to make it closely as possible to the thing, but I realized I think we should just remove the HTML4 itself because it's just a heading for the item. Because I don't think this is just a heading. That's why it's not like a label. If I put it as a label, it's gonna kind of like mess up the. It's gonna make a display block, and we're also kind of styling it to like the right. We're doing margins and stuff because we wanted to like kind of push it like towards this way, or like a little bit slanted in right. We're doing like yeah, kind of indenting it. That's why. But
there are a couple of things there. I'm not actually sure that the for or HTML4 attribute works when it's on a heading. I don't know. My understanding is that it's only meant to be used on label elements.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I haven't tested it, so it's possible that browsers have implemented support. Basically, when you have a label that has the for, if you click on the label, it will put your like focus in the input field, right? And so that's helpful. And then I think that there are some accessibility things that help associate those things. I agree that if you have the heading, the heading and then your input, it kind of is, it makes sense automatically. On the other hand, if you did want to make it a label, you could always add a class name to your label to give it different styling than your other labels. Like your labels don't all have to look the same, but it's up to you, like kind of like how you want to format your HTML. I think using headings makes sense as well. And it's just kind of that would be kind of a style choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
It's good you guys caught that. We kept the HTML4 on the H3. We just completely missed that. Yeah.
Did you see that other one down there on line 18?
18. Oh, damn. Oh, I didn't even see that too. Yeah. Maybe only on labels. Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. We had labels before, and then I guess we just changed it. I did like a Control D, which just Command All, and then selects everything. I think that's why it happened.
Yes, I don't want to say most, but lots and lots of errors in computer science are copy paste or search and replace errors. So it's just, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of my coworkers likes to call that copy pasta.
Copy pasta, I like that.
So one question. So in the feedback, you guys said that we should check if the collection exists before we add it to the database, right? I think that was Rob, right? You said that?
Check that the token is set in your local state before you try to talk to the database about it, because the error that was coming through was something about the token being empty. So basically you had an empty string for your token, but you were talking to the database as though you had one.
You guys have an idea on that, on how to get that to work? Because I think we're using a hook and we can't do an if else in there. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about it.
That's a really good catch. Yes, you cannot put a hook inside a conditional. So one thing that you could do is create a another component inside your page, and only render that component if you have the state set. Because this is basically your add item view is, I believe, your whole page, right? And so you can't, you need people to be able to go directly to that page, right? That's what Yunli had done when she typed in like /list and just went directly there. So people have to be able to land directly on that
Right.
page, whether or not there's any token in the state. And so if you need to do something kind of conditionally there, then you might need to create a new component that that is inside that condition rather than putting your hook inside the condition.
Okay, by that, does that mean like making like list and add item kind of like a private route then? Right, so you can't get to it unless the token exists?
So you could do that. What I was suggesting is basically if you're going to let people go to the page, and maybe that makes more sense, because the other thing was, if you have that navigation that people are going to click on it, and so maybe it makes sense to not kind of show that if that state doesn't exist. But what I was saying is that if you were going to let people go to that page, then you would basically just need to wrap all of the stuff that is currently happening inside that main page component inside a smaller component, and then only show that, like only render that component if you have the
okay.
state to do so.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
otherwise you might render something like a loading, or maybe you would say, like, it's completely up to you, right? You could say, we don't have a list here, we're redirecting you to the home screen, or it's just whatever you want your app to look like, but you have to be able to handle that case where that state isn't available.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Does that sort of mean like we could sub in the home component there if there's no token? Could we do that?
You could. I wouldn't suggest it, because then you're going to be on the list route in the URL bar, but you're going to be seeing the home page, which might be confusing.
That makes sense.
So I would say if you're going to do something like that, to just redirect back to the home page, which there should be functions in the router thing that will help you do that.
Yeah, currently you have token on the app level, so you can use that in a nice way in how to navigate, how to redirect.
Wait, just to clarify, so you're basically saying that depending on the token, right? We get the token right now only if I think when we I guess we get the token when we I guess add an item right now. Add an item, and then that's how we get the token. But
I think we already have it, right?
yeah,
We
I
get
think
the token when we create a new list on the home page.
yeah,
It
and
doesn't hit I don't think it hits the database until we add an item to the shopping list. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
also like when you go here, okay, gotcha. And then so basically what you're saying is that I mean Rob is saying that I need to, like, the list needs to be like empty if we didn't add anything. It shouldn't say like the public list, right? That's basically what you're saying. Like it should say like no list there's no items on the list right now, depending on what token, whoever the token, like depending on the token it is, like for like every user has a token, right? So for that token, it should be like that user's items. So if he doesn't have anything like in the beginning, then it should just say none or something. Is that what you're saying?
You could do that. I'm not completely following, I don't think, as mainly I'm looking at it from the, I guess, the technical side, where right now we're kind of talking to Firestore and saying, can you get me this collection? And you're passing a token that's just an empty string, like the token doesn't exist. And so if that is the case, and I think, well, no, that, yeah, there are a couple of ways that can happen. So if there is no token, then you need to come up with a way to present that to the user that makes sense, whether it's something like, and this is where it comes to, app design and choice. If you say, it's just a page, we're just going to say, you haven't created a list yet, go back to the home page and create a list, and then you can see it here, right?
Okay.
Or maybe
Yeah.
you say, we don't see a list here, we're going to automatically redirect you to the home page in 5 seconds. Or, it's whatever you kind of want to do. But if somebody goes to that page, they should see something other than like a white screen with an error in the console, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of decide how, as a team, you want that to look for the person.
Yeah, so we can do conditional rendering, or we could do like a redirect.
Mhm.
Got it. Yeah, that's actually a better idea.
Move on to Dana for Dana's demo.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Okay. See here. Okay. Let me bring up the code instead. Thanks for your patience.
No problem at all.
Appreciate it. And good to see you guys. Sorry, I didn't get the brain memo about that. That was a link that we use all the time. It's really good to see everybody. What Rafa and I did this week, and he's a great partner, by the way, just in case anybody wants to know, is we were able to import the shopping utilities and set a token and hold it in local storage. So what we did is we were able to grab that token, hold it in local storage, pass it to our home component at the app level, and then use it in the app. And I'll give you, you've already seen the other team walk through what that looks like, but let me show you from our perspective where the code was then. Make this smaller, make this bigger. And so when we're on the home page, I already have a token in local storage because I was playing with this. So if I were to wipe that out and go back to the home page, welcome to your shopping list. And when we click this button, I would expect it to generate a new token. I can confirm that there is a new token because the 3-word token is now in local storage. And then we can add an item to our list. If I wanted, Alka-Seltzer was my big item this week. I'm going to need that kind of soon. Add that item. I love the toast that you guys did. It looks really cool. And so those items are now added to this list because of the work that Viv and Dev did in adding it to the database. The part that we did was importing the shopping utilities, generating the 3-word token through the NPM package, and then holding it in local storage and passing it. And thank you so much for communicating during the week about like, where do we think we should go with this and how to hook it together. Thank you for adding it to the database. And it's really cool now to see that. I like it when errors pop up or like weird page things happen, because then we know, yeah, that's what the user would experience and we need to solve for that. And it had me thinking the last couple of days about all the different ways to solve for that /list bug when you type it in. And so I thought a lot about is conditional rendering the best way? Is this the best way? And I hadn't thought about that component way. So thanks for pointing that out. As somebody new to developing it, it's very helpful to learn the design patterns, especially from people that know and understand. So that was very cool to learn from. Is there anything that I can show you?
That looks good. Does anybody else have a question?
Looks
I
good to
did
me.
want to pop back in briefly to say, this is one of the ways that that error comes up. And as you notice, there is a token in local storage. So it's not just when there's not a token. So you, however you solve for that, you're going to want to be careful not to redirect to the home page or something like that if there actually is a token in local storage. So I think what's actually happening is that it's looping through twice, and the very first time it renders, it hasn't loaded the token yet, and then it does it again. So anyway, just when you go and solve that, just pay attention to that case. So where you go directly to this page and there already is a token in local storage, so that you do actually get the list eventually.
Oh, cool. And I got your notes about the extra logs and the turn array operator and doing the positive case first. That makes a lot of sense to me. So I made a couple changes and pushed those, but it was good to learn from. Yeah,
no problem. It was cool to see everybody's work this week, and I had a chance yesterday to hop in and take a longer look.
Very cool. I suppose that leaves us with retros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
so.
Cool. I'm going to share a link to our retro board here in our channel if you want to follow along here. And while I do so, I'm going to share my screen. Where's the button? I have so many windows open here. Where am I? There's the board I was looking for. Okay, cool. This is our first time doing a retro. There's the screen I'm sharing. Okay, cool. So you can find the link in TCL-33 or 37, I should say. And if you want to go there, you will see these 3 columns here. This gives us an opportunity to kind of talk about the things that went well and give kudos to our fellow developers for things that they did or the things that the team did together well. Certain appreciations, and then we can kind of reflect also on what didn't quite go so well, and kind of set ourselves up better in the future here. So in a perfect world, hopefully we can spend a few minutes on each of these, and if you have any ideas for what you can add here, feel free to do so on the link that I just shared there. And maybe we can start with the appreciations. Does anything come to mind for anyone, the things that they appreciated this last week? You can say them out loud or type them in, whatever, whatever you prefer.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to shout out Dana. It was really nice that you sent a whole video to show the bug. You didn't have to do that. So I thought that was really nice that you went out of your way to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, that is nice. Videos alongside bug reports are a godsend.
Yeah, you really didn't need to do that. So that was so nice.
Oh, I hope I didn't offend anybody by doing that. I struggled
No,
to
I
put
loved
my
it.
thoughts down in typing. So sometimes for me, visually seeing it is easier. So thank you for letting me know that that was okay.
It was good.
Okay, cool.
I appreciate Tanner and everyone else offering office hours for support. Yeah, I mean, I went to Tanner's. That's the only one I've been to, but that was really great help. He spent the whole hour just going through our code. So yeah, props to him.
Happy to help. That's a
And
fun hour.
I want to give a shout out to all the partners I've been with so far. I know Dana's, I haven't worked with her, but she's awesome too. So it's good. All the partners I've been with so far, it's been good communication. The load has been the same, the balance and everything. And there's a lot of collaboration. There's not just one person saying oh, we're gonna do it this way, so we have to do it that way. It's kind of everyone has a hair say and everything. Yeah,
I totally agree. There's a lot of communication happening all the time in Slack, and it feels like everyone is working really hard to make this the best they can make it, and to be good teammates, and that's all great.
I would like to shout out Viviana and Dev and Rafa for just the beyond their code, but the manner in which they interact with me and each other. Like, it's like everyone's so positive and assumes we start off on the positive. Like, even when Rafa messaged me today, he messaged me behind the scenes and said, hey, I'm not feeling really well. Do you think that you would feel comfortable doing XYZ? And, what do you think? And the fact that somebody would take the extra time to check in and see if that actually is okay, even if they're homesick, dying, means a lot, and especially, and I've had Slack conversations with Viviana and Dev, like out in the open, and everyone is just, we default to very polite and professional and nice. It's like a super experience to be able to be treated that way and to want to treat others that way. It's a good thing.
Completely agree.
That was so nice, Dina.
Oh,
I want to highlight Viviana and Dev on taking the initiative to improve the code hygiene last week. Like, just saying, I'm just going to do this, I'm going to merge it, don't worry about it. Like, I think that's great, because like, you don't, engineering managers don't want to have to hold your hand every step of the way. So when you take initiatives and just go forth and let people know what you did, and it helps with the code base in the long run, it's very helpful for the team. And then all the conversations that are happening in the pair threads were like really great. Like, I got busy and then I popped in and just read through the thread, and like, I gained context so easily. So a lot of times, like, you want your team to be able to do that. And I think it's really great that everybody's doing that already.
Cool.
very
Lots
cool.
of good feedback. Maybe we can spotlight what went well. I think we've kind of already started some of these points. We're drifting in between appreciations and what went well, definitely. But is there anything that we felt like went well? I know we're 2 weeks in, so we had last week and this week. Things you've seen improve already, or things you just think were going well right off the jump?
I think we hit on all the criterias. I mean, I know some of them have bugs, but I think we hit on all of them. Like, at least they work.
Yeah, I agree that I've yet to come across an MR where the criterias were missed, and that's awesome to see.
For me, I think what went well in both weeks is like with both partners, we were always quick to like send each other articles on things we were learning. So that was really nice. When I was like working, like either Dev or Dana would send an article, and like vice versa. So I think that was really nice.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I find that when you're learning something for the first time, especially when you're in a group where everyone's kind of on the same level, it brings everyone up so much quicker. Like, what is that? Rising tide raises all boats, right? Where when you share a link that you just learned, it's like you'd spend all the time finding the link and grasping the concepts. And if you just share it with your teammates, then they can learn it, and maybe they ask you a question. So your knowledge is now reinforced through the ability to regurgitate that information, and they also learn with you. So I'd love to see stuff like that.
I actually like the idea of like switching like group like partners every week, because it's good. Because the first week I kind of didn't know what was going on with like Dana and Viviana's code base, because me and Rafa were focused on our own, and they were working on a completely separate like issue. And then this week, like, I worked with Viviana, and like I was like, can you just, before we start, can we just go over each other's code? And like, I actually like was kind of embarrassed to like ask questions, like too many questions, like in the thing, retro. So I was like, do you mind just like kind of going line by line and just like making sure like we're all on the same page? And then I did the same for her, and then yeah. So I like that. It's like we get a new partner, so it's like we get a partner with like the person who did like something else the other week. So it's like at least we get like that experience to go over the code base. Because I'm sure like even Rafa like was kind of like unclear what was going on, because we didn't work on it, right? So I mean, someone can just explain it on like the retro, but sometimes it might not stick if you weren't there when you were actually coding. So I like it because like you can kind of like I mean, that's how we did in boot camp. We just kind of like take turns and stuff, and then we kind of ask like, "Oh, can you explain your part?" And yeah, so it's a cool. I think that's like a pretty cool thing.
That's really great. I kind of wish that we did that at at 1Password more, like my day-to-day job. Usually I'm a little bit off by myself, or sometimes I'm pairing up with one person, but it's not like rotating through and sharing all the knowledge as much as we could be, which I think is a really cool model.
Yeah, everyone's on the same page then.
Mhm.
Yeah, the collaboration is awesome. I think that's the part that's going like super well. And the support with mentorship is right there. Like we all have other things that we do during the week, but everyone gets to those issues when they get to those issues, and they leave very specific feedback on what can be improved and why. And Rob, you left like a link to MDN to like, hey, check this out. It can be done this way. It might be a good to look at because other people might understand it better in the future. Those kind of things are really key in learning the ropes. In the boot camp that I was in, I did like a part-time program, and I held a full-time job at the same time, and I didn't really pair with anybody else. There was nobody that I could pair with that like could keep to my schedule. So this is a completely new experience, which is it's very welcome and will help me improve skills. I'm very appreciative for it. The improvement part, like to segue into that, if it's okay, would be I would really love to know how to wrap up better with the code base on our pull requests each week. Like what is the criteria so that we can merge it into main and then make new issues from there? Because I think like in the first week we had feedback and it wasn't fully integrated before we moved forward. And so like a branch was created and we both tried to work off that branch. I think that was like the best we knew then, but I think there might be a better way moving forward to get our work all pushed so that we can start clean for the new week.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, it'd be nice by Sunday at the very least to get all of our MRs merged from the week prior. And that way on Monday or whenever we actually get around to working on the issues, you can go check out main and pull down the latest code that was merged into it on Sunday. And then that's the branch that you start off on for your new issues. So if you are working on feedback from previous MR, you would do the same thing, but it's good to keep issues within their own branch, which I think is something that we dropped the ball a little bit on this last 2 weeks, where like, if you're working on, let's say issue number 3, and then there's also feedback from issue number 2 that you worked on the previous week, let's try to keep those two in 2 different branches. And that way we can have them up in different PRs and have them reviewed with more of a focus. And then we can kind of merge them in as they get ready. I think that's the ideal flow. If we can hit the Sunday merge, that's the bread and butter right there.
Mm-hmm.
If we satisfy the changes that are requested on a PR, are we able to merge that ourselves, or do you merge it? Like, what is the protocol?
Yeah, I think it would be nice to see, I mean, anyone who feels if the thing's ready to merge. So, oftentimes we leave points of review, but they aren't requirements. Like we'll leave a couple comments and then we'll hit the approve button probably. Unless it's something completely game breaking or maybe an acceptance criteria was missed or something, then at that point we might hold off. And again, those comments, like you can break them off into an issue and try to work on them the next week, but we also need to move forward with the project. So just make sure you're not overwhelming yourself with the amount of work, because we want to make sure you're not overworking yourself throughout the week. That's not really the goal of this. So if it's something little like, oh, this would be nice to see next time, just keep that in mind as you go. And if you find an opportunity to refactor it and think back like, oh, Rob left me this comment a few weeks ago on this component and it was a good point, but I never got around to implementing it. There's going to be times when you are working in these components, you're writing a lot of changes to them as you receive issues. And those are always good times just to take into consideration feedback you've received and just kind of punch it out in there too. So don't think that everything we say is something that has to be changed unless we outright say so, which would be very rare. So
the review status would be a good indicator, right? So if it's like several comments but an approval, then it's kind of like a take it or leave it for this PR. You know, if you want to add these changes, that's fine. If you want to just make a mental note and do it next time, or you know, maybe it doesn't apply again during this, you know, cohort, but it's something to think about, right? If it's something like a request changes response, then there's something that's probably wrong to some extent, and that then becomes a conversation with the person who left that review. So in some cases, it's possible to come back and say, you know, is it okay if we pick this up next week in our next PR, or do we really need to make this fix now? And the reviewer might say, yeah, that's fine, and go with it. Or maybe it's something that's like, well, it really wouldn't be good because if you merge it like it is, maybe that's going to mess up the other team, you know, next week while they're trying to get stuff done. And so it'd be great to get that fixed before we merge it in, right? So kind of if somebody requests changes, you probably want to have a conversation with them, unless you just go in and fix it, come back and have a conversation and ask if what would be the best approach. Even if you do fix the changes, it would be good probably to come and just ping that person. Even our public channel is fine. Just say, you know, so at so-and-so, I addressed your feedback on this PR. Could you give it another look? And usually then that person will go in, take a look, give you approval, and now you're all green and you're not merging something that says the changes were requested, right? Like it's just kind of like kind of respecting the other person's feedback, but realizing that we have to move forward. There's a balance there. Go ahead, Ian.
I want to chime in. Yes, all of everything Rob said. And I want you to think of code reviews as like a sanity check, right? Like getting extra eyes in your code because we will have off days or things we don't think about. So times when you see changes requested, it's helpful for you. You think about it, like especially if you're working on a feature that's meaty and you are not sure, then definitely ask for that review again. You can re-request a review for yourself. Think of it as like you want feedback and you're appreciating it, then it's okay to ask for that second review again. Many times, you know, on my off days, I like to check with my team lead, like, hey, am I thinking about this correctly? And sometimes like it feels better to do that merge, like smash that merge button when you know there's enough eyes on your work.
That's good info. So communicate as often as we need to get to where we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing I always like to see or one thing I take into consideration when it's my PR, also what I like to see when I'm a reviewer in a professional setting, is an acknowledgement of the comments. So, you know, like if there's a comment left, I try not to just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna merge it anyway if I feel like whatever, you know. I like to at least acknowledge it and say, okay, yeah, maybe I'm gonna review it later or I'll take it into consideration. But to not just, you know, move on with it. That's just I suppose it's a courtesy thing. Not a requirement, just a tip for your career, I suppose. Cool.
So I wanted to bring up the thing that I added here on that column, avoid merging branches for separate PRs. I think somebody may have mentioned this briefly, or maybe Tanner said something about it. But it does, so from a reviewer's perspective, it does make it very difficult to review a PR if there are, like in this case, we had basically two PRs that were almost identical code. They had diverged only slightly at the end. And so it wasn't easy to tell which things belong to which PR. I actually went into Git locally, and I would just like selected the different commits that were by the various authors so that I could see which comments belonged where. There are these things that arise where it feels like one depends on another. But when that happens, probably should be a sort of conversation with the team to figure out how to best move forward. One thing that is an option is to set a PR's target to another branch. If you have one person's changes that need to go in first and then the other person's builds on top of them, or pairs, I should say, not persons, then you can set the target of the second PR to be the first one so that that difference shows up correctly. That wasn't specifically applicable here because they kind of merged together and then they diverged again. Like, so it's hard, but it would be good to try to avoid that going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in the beginning, I guess we were kind of just scared to like merge like without your permission, and then because remember we had list view and like we had two list
Yeah.
views, so I guess we were just like a little like scared to like merge it because we thought like maybe you guys had to do it or maybe do it end of the week, like with your permission. So we just kind of like branched off from like someone's thing, but now we know we're gonna take a little bit more initiative and like merge when necessary and yeah, follow those steps.
Cool.
And try to do it by Sunday, like or Sunday or Monday. Yeah. So they're
Tanner, are you trying to show something?
Oh no, I'm not. I was just looking at a jobs page. Just mention it. I forgot I was sharing the screen.
So I want to chime in and agree that as a reviewer, I had the confusion of like, what do I say? I already said it in this one. Who do I say it to? So I think I understand like it's very easy to want to avoid merge conflicts to do some of the things, and then like you want to be able to see it in the database. It helps to stay within your branch and maybe hard code something to simulate it. And then when you get to a good place where we have this review and things are more kosher, then you can merge and then create another one to take out that hard coding thing. So a lot of this is coordinating and collaborating as a team and how to piecemeal these things moving forward. So think about that as like some of the issues will get more complicated. And if everything is merged together like that, it's really hard to pinpoint where that area is. Like for me as a reviewer, I didn't know who to tell, like you have to fix this. It's hard for me to know. And you want to make sure that when you're at your new job, like you don't want to do that to other reviewers and even for yourself.
Good call out. I think we weren't sure where the lines were, but now having had this experience, it helped us learn, where they are.
Yeah, I don't think I realized
Exactly what
Tanner
retros
said
are all about.
something.
What's that?
I don't think I realized until Tanner said something. I was like, oh, I see how we made everyone's life difficult.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, right? It was cool.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit in our office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to recommend like the best thing you could do for yourself is to have this habit of like doing a self-code review. You look at your PR, you look at the code changes, and try to think of it as like, if I'm a reviewer, and it gives yourself a fresh eyes of like, oh, if I'm somebody else reviewing this code, what are things that I should change? And a lot of times you'll see things that you didn't before that, and you can fix it before somebody else looks at your stuff.
Yes, I'm always doing this. Like, it's the same thing with like Slack messages, right? You send it, especially if it's a long one, and then you read through it and you're like, ugh, and you go through and edit it all again, right? Same kind of idea with PRs. If you read it again, you'll find things that you probably want to change.
Yeah, that helped me early on. I would always accidentally include little things like console logs or testing code in my PRs, and I would go open it, and just before I would send it to someone, I would sometimes I would forget, and then I would be embarrassed. That I left that in there, and there would always be the comment like, "This isn't supposed to be in here." I'm just like, "Dang it!" So after a few embarrassing moments, I learned that habit. So that's definitely a good one to keep around.
May I ask a professional question about pull requests in GitHub? There is like an emoji feature. Is that frowned upon in the workplace, or does it depend on where you work? Is it cool to use that? Like, what are some things
love
to
emojis.
avoid? Okay, I do too, because I get sort of like a feel from it, but there may be other opinions. I don't know.
My opinion is I want to work with a team that welcomes emojis.
Oh, cool.
So if you don't like my emojis, I wouldn't be
Team
sitting
emoji.
around. Yep.
Yeah, I find this generally speaking in Slack too, where it's so easy to be formal and have like periods and at the end of every sentence, etc. And it's one way of communicating, but when that's the only way you're talking with someone, it can be so dry and boring. So I always have like 10 emojis and like maybe an all caps word or something. I try to be as expressive as I talk in person, and I think it makes the working from home life a little less, solitary.
Cool.
One other aspect to that is just to not use like a thumbs up emoji in place of an approval or something like that, right? They're kind of like to add on good vibes, not usually functional.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I was going to say about what Tanner was saying earlier, like adding stuff you didn't mean to. I don't know how many of you are using a GUI, graphical user interface, for Git. I use that. There are like hardcore devs that only ever do command line stuff, which is fine too. But I really like how the UI. I use an app called Fork, which is free to try, but you pay for it. There are free ones out there. And then I'll stage in like down to individual chunks of code or lines even, like, yes, this, I definitely want to commit this and I want to commit this, and I'll put together my staged stuff. And that's another place where you can do the kind of that self-review even before you commit, and push to GitHub or open the APR. Just like kind of reviewing what you're committing before you even commit it.
Yeah, I've also used Git Kraken in the past, and that has a good free option too if you're looking for something that's free. That's one I keep handy when I need to bust one out. Although I am one of those hardcore crazy devs that just use the CLI.
Is it Kraken like Clash of the Titans Kraken, or like Crack the Safe
Yeah.
Kraken? Okay.
Yeah, Git Kraken.
And
Their
then
logo
Fork
is
was
like
the
a
other
big-
one?
Mhm.
Fork, yeah. Tower is another one. And the GitHub has a free desktop app as well, that you can use.
I think it's almost time, so I wanted to bring up one thing I think I forgot about asking you. Rob, you mentioned that we're using different node versions, right?
Yes.
So how should we go about that? Do I need to install something, or do I just need to change my package JSON to like have that same version?
No, yeah, you'll need to update it out. It won't be in the package JSON. So however you installed Node, I have downloaded it directly from Node's website. I think you can also install it using like a package manager like Brew if you're on Mac.
Yeah, that's how I did it. Yeah.
I think you can even use npm to upgrade itself. I don't usually do it that way, but yeah, if you just kind of Google how to upgrade Node or npm, and I think npm is always packaged with Node, so you should get both together.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, so we have just a couple minutes left. Let me share my screen and we can go over issues. I can find my Zoom controls. Okay. So we have two issues for this week, 5 and 6. 5 is there's a lot of text in this one. And it's got a bit of meat to it. You're wanting to allow somebody else to look at your list. And so, in development, this can just be you being another person. Like you could do a separate browser profile or whatever you want to do to be testing this. But the idea is that somebody, in a different country could be looking at your list. So you're going to want to provide the token. So the user will need to be able to see that token and be able to copy it. And then if somebody comes to the page that doesn't already have a token saved locally, then there'll be a form to allow them to enter the token. And when they do that and hit submit, they will then save that token to their own local storage and be able to see your list there. There's some other stuff in here about errors. You can see kind of a rendering of an example. Talks about using a label tag for the field, which you've already been doing with your app so far. Let's see. And yeah, this last part is basically how to know whether the list exists. So whether or not you are saving the token to Firestore immediately when you create the list or not will determine whether or not you can share an empty list. And this is just something for you to evaluate whether that's something that you want to allow. So this one is that is the sharing of the list. And then the other one, this is going to be just entire a different aspect. Like I don't think you're going to have the same kind of overflow that you had this week, or overlap, I should say. So when I'm entering an item that is the same as something already on the list, I want to see an error so I can avoid duplicate items. So show an error message if it's the exact same name. And then the second one, show an error message if it's the exact same name, but capitalization and punctuation are not counted, basically. So even if somebody put an exclamation point after theirs and a period after the other one, right, we're going to treat those the same. But the original input that the first item had is what should be saved in the database. Okay, so in our pairs this week were Dev and Dana, I believe, and
Yep.
Viviana and Rafa. Do I have anybody who wants to volunteer for one of these?
I feel like you should just assign them, man. It's way better that way.
I feel like Dana always knows what she wants to work on.
Oh, the one I don't want to work on is number 5. So we should probably take number 5 then. That's going to be the learning. That's probably the learning opportunity. So
Okay.
yes,
That's the same way I
if
was
Deb
thinking.
would agree.
Yeah, that's the same way I was feeling. Let's do 5. Actually, didn't
Okay,
want to do
cool.
5. Sounds
All
like a
right,
challenge.
let's do it.
All right. Sorry, Viviana, you're not going to get to learn anything this week.
That's good. She's a know-it-all then.
All right.
I do want to
Sounds
throw it
good.
out there that there is an option of mobbing as a team. So if you ever get to a point where you want to mob together and code together, that works as well.
Cool.
If you haven't heard that term, it's kind of an alternative to pair programming, where it's basically anything more than 2 people is considered a mob as opposed to a pair. And the idea is just that you're sharing information more quickly with everyone all at the same time.
Yeah, feel free to mob with us.
That sounds funny. I like it.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't heard that before. So I'm like reacting internally. I'm like, oh, that sounds funny, but should I show that it looks funny to me? No, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
also it is slang too. It's my friends used to grow up. So
But we call this a
certain context.
boot camp too. Like we literally called it mobbing as well. So I think it's like
Oh,
a thing.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. I will assign those, and post the Slack things and we should be good. Does anybody else have anything to say before we say goodbye?
Good for me. Have a good rest of your weekend.
All right,
Have a good
farewell.
week, everybody.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
You guys.